Honey, you want cold water or
Thank you. That's so nice.
very cold?
Sure. Thank you. How about you, Peggy? Do you want one?
You want?
Sure.
I can. We have extra. I bring one other for Ken.
Would you like to be closer to me?
Some shots. Shabbat Shalom. Lovely to see everybody. We're going to start our service this evening with sacred words, Hebrew words, Yai Lai Lai. Please do join me in singing. Yai Lai Lai Lai. 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 Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai.
Shabbat Shalom. We're so happy to be with you, to be together on this spectacular evening. I'm Allie Tick-Brill. I'm Sukkot Shalom's new adjunct rabbi, and I'm honored to be leading tonight's service with Kenny. And we're joined tonight by Peggy Maslow, who is the musical director of this church, First Presbyterian Church of Wilmette, which has welcomed us tonight, and it's such an honor to have her adding her voice and her presence to our service. We're going to begin by lighting the Shabbat candles. I am going to indulge in a moment of personal privilege by inviting my parents to light the candles. My mom and dad, Andy and Stephen Tick. I'm very excited to be part of the Sukkot Shalom community, and I know they are too.
Everyone should have received a laminated prayer card at the beginning of the service. If you didn't, please raise your hand and we'll run one to you. At the top of one side of that card, it says lighting the candles. And those are the words you need, words that you need to sing along with me as we light our Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
So we're here in this garden, and we know there's something elemental to our humanity about being in a garden. Because in the beginning of our Bible, we read that God places the first human being in a garden and says, here, this is where you should be. You should tend to this garden and you should work here. And being in this beautiful space, we imagine why God wanted to place the first human in a garden. Perhaps it was the tranquility that a garden provides. Perhaps it was seeing up close the wonder of creation and how a garden presents new life and growth at every stage. But that will remain part of our mystery tonight as we worship in this garden, what it is about being in this space that is so central to being human. We're going to continue our service by singing Sanctuary as we worship in this magnificent sanctuary made by nature.
And as Rabbi Tickbrell said, I am really pleased to be joined by my friend Peggy. This is our first time playing together, I think, in almost 3 years, due to a certain something that has been holding us back from being together. So it's a real personal privilege for me to be joining you as well in your place of worship, your sanctuary outdoors. So we'll use those words, sanctuary, the same tune we opened our service with together. I invite you to join me in singing. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Hine matov, hine matov, umanayim, shevet achim, gam yachad, hine matov, umanayim, shevet achim, gam yachad. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Thank you very much, Peggy. Great to play with you again. And we'll invite Peggy back up for to make her work a little more on this Friday evening in just a little while. But down at the bottom of that same side of your prayer sheets, the words to Dodi Li. We welcome in Shabbat with images of that Dode, that beloved. And we'll hear more from that word in just a moment when we turn to L'cha Dodi. But first, Dodi Li at the bottom of that page. Dodi Li Vani Lo Haroeh Bashoshanim Dodi Li Mizotola Min Hamidbar Mizotola Min Hamidbar Dodi Li Vani Lo Haroeh Bashoshanim Dodi Li Libavtini Achoti Chala Libavtini Achoti Kala Dodi Li Vani Lo Haroeh Bashoshanim Dodi Li.
The mystics in Sfat knew how hard it can be to pray inside a sanctuary. That something about being seated and being inside can just zap our sense of spirituality. And so on Friday afternoon, as the sun was setting, they decided to dress in white to represent the purity of the soul, and they ran out into the fields to dance and to welcome Shabbat. And of course, they knew better than anyone that God could be reached anywhere and that their prayers could be heard from wherever they were. But the mystics knew that they would be different going out into the field, that perhaps they would be more ready to connect and more prepared to welcome Shabbat. And so they went into the field being a place that was located halfway between the city and halfway into the forest, a place that had elements of nature but also elements of their everyday world. And that was where they decided they should welcome Shabbat. And so here we are, the same time of day in a field, and we will welcome Shabbat with the same words they used, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet ben l'tchila lecha dodi, Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha dodi, Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Oi veshalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvtsohola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi, Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha dodi, Likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela.
As we offer our prayers tonight, we have all of these trees standing in witness to our prayers. And the Talmud says that the human is like a tree, and that if the tree has many branches but not many roots, it will not survive many storms. But if it has deep roots, and even if it has few branches, then it can withstand any storm. And so we think now, as we turn to our call to worship, about those things that root us, and the people and the values that ground us, that give us strength, and that allow us to stand tall and to weather the storm. And so if you're able, we invite you to rise for Baruch Hu.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
We continue with Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vahed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vahed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
You may be seated as we continue singing our song of freedom.
Does anybody here, or if you put it in the chat, I'll check your answers later if you're joining us online. Does anybody here know what the word contrafaction means? No? Specifically in a musical sense, it means taking a specific melody and placing words that may not have originally been written for that melody into that melody. It's a very long and storied history of doing that through a number of different traditions, but particularly through Judaism. We do this all the time, right? The tune of Ma'od Sur always comes back at Hanukkah, bum ba da 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 da, at our high holidays, and so on and so forth, and we fit pieces of different text through those melodies as they weave in and out of our calendar year. Well, there's nothing to do with the calendar this evening, but since we had Peggy with us, I thought we would take the tune of an old Scottish folk song, which we all know very well, The Water is Wide. We'll offer that tune together and those words together before we sing our Micha Mocha together. Water is wide, I cannot get o'er, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and both shall row, my love and I. One more time with the English. The water is wide, I cannot guess o'er, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and both shall row, my love and I. Micha Mocha, Micha Mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar B'Kodesh, Norati Lo Tosefele, Norati Lo Tosefele. Thank you so much, Peggy. Back on our sheets, it says Hashkivenu, and we'll offer the words of our people's lullaby, asking that a shelter of peace be spread over all of us and all of humanity. We'll offer these words together. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haborei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haborei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
We rise for Amidah, and then we will continue with the prayers of our own hearts.
Adonai, sefatai tiftach ufi agin tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. You may wish to take a big deep breath. Maybe it's your first one of the day. And as you exhale, take a moment to pray the prayers of your own hearts, your own minds. And when you're finished, you may have a seat. by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. For the wicked carried us away, captivity required from us a song. How can we sing our God's song in a strange land? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, Adonai. Son, Imrefi, Vegyon Libi, Lefanecha, by the waters of Babylon, where we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. We'll take a moment now. It's unfortunately not on the sheet in front of you, but we do know the words, to think prayers of healing for those of body, of mind, of spirit. I'll ask if anyone is joining us online this evening and you'd like to leave a name in the chat, please feel free to do so. But if you're joining us in person, as I look around our space, if you wish to share the name of someone you're thinking of, please do so. Our healing prayer, Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
In high school, I was on the student council. And one of my jobs on student council was informing people when they had been nominated to the homecoming court. So that reference may be kind of dated now, as I don't know if schools still nominate a homecoming king and queen now that we have a more expansive understanding of gender. But when I went to high school, it was homecoming king and homecoming queen. And it was a real honor. It was not just a popularity contest, but the students would vote to be represented by people who they wanted to elevate and to say, this person represents our class. So everybody got to cast a vote, and I helped tally up the votes, and then it was my job to inform the 4 young men and the 4 young women who received the most votes, and then the king and queen would be selected from there. So this was an awesome job letting these people know, because when I told them, they were so happy. And I got to watch the joy wash over their face as I did my little speech. Hi, I'm Allie. I'm from the Student Council. You've been nominated to the homecoming court. So I went off about my task and I informed the first 7 people that they were nominated. They were all thrilled. And then it was time to let the last person know. So for the sake of anonymity, we will call her Plonit Bat Plonit, which is Hebrew for Jane Doe. So I was pretty sure I knew who Plonit was, but I just wanted to check because this was high stakes. So I said to my friend, you know Plonit Bat Plonit, right? She's like this tall, she's got hair, eyes, a mouth, she's really nice. My friend was like, yup, that's her. So I had the confirmation I needed, and I went and I let her know. And the words just flew out of my mouth. I'm Allie, I'm from the Student Council, you've been nominated to the homecoming court. Her whole body just changed. She stood up straighter, her shoulders went back. She was beyond happy. It was awesome. So then a few days later, a light bulb went off in my head. And that light bulb encouraged me to run over to my yearbook, which is probably also a dated reference, and to look up Plonit Bat Plonit and just double check that it was the right person. And so when I found her name, Plonit Bat Plonit, it was not, in fact, the person that I had let know this information. Their names were incredibly similar. Let's call her Plonita Bat Plonita. So as I discovered this, my stomach just twisted into a knot. I felt sick because the words had already come out of my mouth. The train had left the station. There was no going back. So first I panicked, and then I reached out to the teacher who advised the student council, and we made a plan because we really didn't want to hurt her feelings. And we also wanted to be fair to Plonita Bat Plonita, who had in fact earned the votes. And so what we decided to do was to expand the homecoming court and let Plonita Bat Plonita, who had earned the votes, be on the court as well. And we added the next ranking young man, and no one really knew about it until I decided to tell all of you tonight. And then at the homecoming dance, I saw Plonit Bat Plonit, and she was so happy. She even had her braces temporarily removed for the night. Even just telling the story reminds me of the anxiety I felt. So the Talmud teaches us that the tongue is such a dangerous and important and powerful tool that it needs to be locked behind 2 gates. And that is why the tongue is behind our teeth and our lips. Our words have such tremendous power. And so often when we use our words, we're describing the world we live in or communicating, making a connection. But there's another kind of speech that I want to talk about, and it's called the performative utterance. And this term, performative utterance, was coined by a philosopher named J.L. Austin. And instead of just describing our world, a performative utterance changes the reality. And with those words, a new reality is born. So for example, you've been nominated to the homecoming court. Or maybe more importantly, I take you to be my husband, to love, to honor, and to cherish. Or when God said, Yihiyeh, or let there be light, and there was light. In our Torah portion this week, we read about vows and how important it is to make a vow. And the Torah says that when a person makes a vow to God or establishes an oath of obligation, they have to follow through on it. Anything that passes across their lips, they have to do. And we are supposed to treat our speech as a performative utterance, as something that changes the reality, and we should follow through on it. It's curious why in the Torah portion this week we're talking about oaths, because the people are poised to finally enter the promised land. And so why focus on oaths now? Well, many commentators suggest that it's because they were on the precipice of creating a new society, and they wanted this new society to be one that was about justice and goodness and honesty, and wanted it to be in opposition to what they had experienced in Egypt. And so to do that, to have a society that's not governed by fear or force, they needed people to honor their word, because freedom depends on people keeping their word. And being part of a people also depends on people keeping their word. Our rabbis in our tradition go to great lengths to educate us about how important our speech is. And they say that lashon hara, or evil speech, is so terrible to do that gossiping and speaking poorly about people is tantamount to murder. And the reason they connect gossiping and evil speech with murder is because when someone is murdered, their blood is spilled. And when you embarrass someone and when you use your words for evil, you draw blood to their face when you make them embarrassed or ashamed. And the Talmud even goes so far as to say that the temple was destroyed when people stopped caring about their words and stopped being honest. In a little less than 2 months, we will be gathered for the high holidays. We are in this time period that the prayer book calls the twilight of the vanishing year. And soon we're going to be contemplating together how we've behaved this year. And we're not going to beat our breast and talk about observance. No synagogue in the world has people say, I should have kept, kosher better, I should have gone to services more. That's not what our liturgy asks of us. Our liturgy asks us to beat our breast and to think about how we used our words. Were we dishonest? Were we deceitful? Were we hard-hearted? And so we have this reminder in the portion about the importance of our oaths to really recommit, even before the new year, to using our speech and our words to build people up, to make connections, and to affirm. Yehiyu leratzon lefanecha, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, God.
Yiyu leratzon imrefi v'gyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri V'goali Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri V'goali
We turn now to memory and we think of those among us who have lost loved ones recently and at this time in years past. And on this Shabbat, our Sukkot Shalom family remembers Bill Friedman, Julie Rothschild Kahn, Edward I. Rothschild, Sam Friedman, Kathy Berggren, Renee Feldman, Joan Fried, Martha Rosenthal, Barbara Froder, Harriet Petter, Gail Fried, John Lawrence French, Nancy Peterman, Bruce Brenner, Marlene Plotnick, Nettie Masters, Toba Strasberg, Max Stevens, Ruthie Gottesman, Robert Samuel Gartenberg, Madeline Horowitz, Bakuzi, Bennett Carter, Robert Froder, Max Bunham, Norman Pakowitz, Carolyn Schultz. We also take as our own those 7 people who were killed on the 4th of July in Highland Park. Jackie Sundheim, Catherine Goldstein, Stephen Strauss, Irina McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza, Eduardo Uvaldo. Are there any other names to add to our prayers? We rise for Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Amei Amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Berechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May God grant peace to all who are in need. Amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
Thank you again, Peggy, for joining us for worship and for letting us be present with you here tonight. We wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat and a week of peace.
Shabbat Shalom to the tune of Sanctuary, a contrafaction, if you will. Shabbat Shalom. 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 Thank you, Rabbi Tick Brill. Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, First Presbyterian Church of Wilmette, and thank you all. Shabbat Shalom.